So a little bit of background about the Student Life Fund and why students have the ability to collect student life fees and spend them on campus. First of all of our campuses are required to provide for student life activities through Minnesota statute, as well as Minsky Policy. And in addition to the requirement that those activities must occur on campus, it's the student government and the student life budget committees on campus that are given the authority to decide how those expenditures are made. And the reason that our state law and our system policy really incentivizes campuses to have extracurricular activities on campus, there are a lot of different reasons for that. First, it helps supplement the academic programs we have on campus. And this is especially important for a lot of our technical programs where you might have students that are in an auto mechanics program or a horticulture program, and extracurricular clubs allow those students to get more hands-on experience and to participate in a community of other students that are interested in those roles. It also helps develop leadership on campus. As all of you are acutely aware, being involved in extracurricular activities gives students the opportunity to organize students, to run campaigns, to plan events, to socialize with others on campus, and really become leaders in their campus communities. And lastly, extracurricular involvement really encourages a sense of community on campus and makes students feel like they're a part of a welcoming, inclusive environment. And that inclusive environment has actually been shown both in our system and nationally to encourage completion and ultimately graduation for students. If they feel like they're supported, if they're involved and engaged with activities on campus, they're much more likely to be successful. So for all of those reasons, state law and system policy really want there to be a robust student life on campus. More specifically, the state statute that dictates how student life funds should be spent is 136F.01. And in subdivision 5 of that statute, they talk about what are the types of activities that student life should fund. And so they have really a bulleted list. It includes lectures, concerts, and then this is sort of the catch-all phrase, any other functions that contribute to the mental, moral, or cultural development of the student body. And their community. So you can see that's a very large gray area that you want to think about on campus when you're trying to decide whether or not something is an appropriate use of funds. If it fits into that definition and you can make a legitimate argument that it fits that definition, then yes, student life funds can probably be used for that purpose. And if you think about all of the activities that your clubs and organizations are involved in at your college, it really speaks to all of these. So the mental development, when you have clubs that are complementing what's happening in curriculum, those clubs are certainly meeting that criteria. Moral and cultural development, all of the types of activities you're involved in terms of organizing students, running campaigns, cultural clubs on campus, the ability to debate ideas, are all present in having extracurricular activities. And then community involvement. I know many of you on campus organize events where you actually invite community members, non-students to attend and be part of your campus environment. And the state has decided that that's a legitimate purpose for student life dollars to serve as well. Additionally, the statute talks about athletic activities. So some of your colleges have athletic programs, but you might also have intercollegiate, intramural type of sports, and those are all appropriate uses of funds. Forensics, dramatics, and then here's again another big piece that's very vague and you can fit a lot into, which is any other activities that contribute to the educational, cultural, or physical well-being of the student body. So again, if you can make an argument that your proposed use of student funds meets that definition, then you can spend student life dollars in that way. On the Minsky side, so separate from state law, there's policy that implicates how student life dollars are spent, and that's policy 2.8, which is available on the Minsky website. And when I post this webinar to our site, I'll be sure to include a link in this PowerPoint so that you can get directly to that website. But within that policy, it says that the student life fee shall fund the campus student association. And that's really the key, that it shall fund that group. So you as a Senate, all of your activities are funded through student life. And additionally, funds can be used to fund the activities of the student life committee if you have a separate committee, which we'll talk about in just a moment. There's a process that all of our campuses must follow to collect and spend student life dollars. So the student life fee, even though authority is given to campuses to collect it under state law, it's system, policy, and procedure that really dictate how that's done. It's an optional fee under policy and procedure 5.11, which is a system policy. Again, I'll provide a link on the web to that. 5.11 is the system's tuition and fee policy. And it divides fees that can be charged into what's called optional and what's called mandatory. And that doesn't mean that to a student it's optional or mandatory, that a student can decide whether or not to pay the fee. That just means that campuses aren't required to charge a student life fee. If they want to provide student life activities in a different way or through different funds, they can do that. All of our campuses do charge a student life fee, though, so that's really kind of an antiquated distinction at this point, because all of our campuses are definitely collecting student life funds. Under that same policy, 5.11, there is a state maximum for how much a campus can collect per student in student life funds. Now, many of the other fees you pay on campus do have a state maximum assigned to them, but most of those fees have a maximum per credit. So, for example, you can pay up to $10 a credit. A campus can charge up to $10 a credit for a technology fee. So, if you're a student and you're taking 15 credits full time, in a given semester, you're charged $150, $10 a credit for that fee. The student life fee is a little bit different in that the maximum is actually set per semester. So the maximum a student can be charged for student life per semester is $112.50. If you divide that amount out over a 15 credit full-time course load, that's really a maximum of $750 per credit. Many of our campuses charge more than $750 per credit. They might charge $10 a credit, but only up to that maximum of 112. So if you're a student and you're taking 15 credits, you can really be charged the same amount as a student who's taking 13 in that case. So that maximum is important to be aware of as you're considering changes to your student life fee on campus. So just thinking about that. Also, the budget for student life is prepared by either what's called the Student Life Budget Committee or the Senate. Different campuses structure that differently. For some of our smaller campuses, it is the Senate that makes all of the student life budget decisions, decides what clubs and organizations get what amount of money, and really oversee that process. And then on larger campuses, it's usually the Student Life Budget Committee, which is a separate group that makes those determinations. An important thing to know about the Student Life Budget Committee, and we'll be talking about that again in a moment, is its composition, in that it has to be primarily students on that group. The Senate obviously already is all students, so that's not a concern. When the budget is prepared, it has to be prepared annually by either of those groups, and it can ultimately be modified by the president of the college or by the Senate. If the president does decide to modify the student life budget, the Senate has to be consulted on that change, meaning that the Senate needs to be able to weigh in and their opinion needs to be considered in decision making. But ultimately, the college president does have the final say. I would say that's a very rare circumstance. In my time with the organization over the last 7 years, I have really only seen a college president step in to modify a student life budget 2, maybe 3 times. So if that is happening, you want to be talking on your campus and really be having some deep consultation with the president about that decision, because that should be very rare that that occurs. Um, the budget should also be divided between recognized clubs on campus. The procedure for Minsky dictates that student life dollars can only go to recognized clubs and organizations. And how your clubs and organizations are recognized varies campus to campus, but your campus should have some pretty formalized requirements. So, like, a club needs to have X number of members, or they need to have a constitution and bylaws, or whatever your process is. They need to be officially recognized. And then also the committee or the Senate can use formal criteria that they develop to divvy up the budget. They don't have to do that, and a lot of campuses do operate more informally. They say, okay, Phi Theta Kappa, you had $2,000 for your budget last year, and you used that money well and served students, so we're going to give you another $2,000, or we're going to give you the increase you're seeking, based solely on a conversation that the Senate has with that club or organization. But other campuses have moved to more formal criteria, where they actually put together like a rubric that says, in order for a club to get their full request, or to get the same amount of allocation they received in the previous year, they need to meet certain requirements. They need to host X number of events, or they need to have focused on recruiting additional students, or they need to have reached out to the community in some way, or they need to report back to the Senate or the Student Life Committee about how they spent their money, what they learned at a given conference. Any of those types of criteria can be used. And that is something that, especially if you're on a campus where you have a lot of clubs or organizations that are vying for a smaller and smaller pie of student life dollars, that you do develop those criteria so that you make sure that your budgeting decisions are fair and consistent to all of those organizations. A little bit more about the Student Life Budget Committee, if your campus operates through that process. I said it has to be primarily students, and it does. It has to be at least 2/3 students. So you can have student life staff, faculty, administrators as part of that group, but it does have to be at least 2/3 students. The Student Life Budget Committee should have their own bylaws, and they should also develop annual guidelines through visitation with the Senate and the president, to talk about, are they going to have those formal criteria, what the budget looks like for next year, what the fee should be. They propose that type of thing. And then also that group, whether it's the Student Life Budget Committee or it's the Senate, should have access to an annual reporting on the state of the student life budget, as well as the reserve. Unspent funds. So any student life funds that remain unspent at the end of the year should remain in student life, and in most cases, those funds are put into the reserve. Occasionally, over the years, we've had campuses where unspent student life dollars have actually rolled over into the college's general fund. That's not appropriate or legal. So student life dollars, once they are collected, are always student life dollars, and they need to remain in student life in some capacity, which is why in most cases those dollars are rolled into a student life reserve. And it really is good stewardship of student life dollars to maintain a healthy reserve on campus. Under Minsky Policy, you have the right to have a student life reserve. It's not required. I think most, if not all, of our colleges do have a student life reserve. And what I mean by a healthy level is both that you have enough reserves to cover student life activities in the case that there's an emergency or there's an immediate need on campus during the year, so that you don't have to pull from the budgets of other organizations in order to fund those needs. So that's one. But also making sure that your reserve level is not too high. And that's about good stewardship as well. Um, Really, the dollars that you're collecting from students, from current students, should be used to provide activities and events for those students. So I don't want to pay into the student life fee in 2012 if that dollar is not going to be spent for maybe 5 or 10 years. I want to be able to reap the benefits of my contribution. So again, just making sure that you have a healthy reserve level, not too low and not too high, is important to successful administration of those funds. Um, and then lastly, funds, student life dollars can be audited, or they can, or at the Senate's request, or the Senate can ask for a more detailed accounting of student life dollars. However, if that's requested, it's funded through student life. The Senate has to pay for that audit. So it's not something that should be done on a regular basis or even a frequent basis. That's really sort of a last resort, or kind of a tool that a Senate can use if there's not transparency around the student life budget, if they're unable to get a truthful, or what they feel is a truthful accounting of student life dollars and how the budget was spent in previous years. And so MSCSA can try to help you if you feel like you're not getting truthful information about student life dollars, or there's not transparency. Before it gets to a point where you need to request an audit, reach out to our office and we'll do everything we can to resolve that informally. But again, in my time with MSCSA, I have seen on at least one occasion a Senate request an audit of their student life funds and actually be able to recover some funds that were spent inappropriately. So that is an option that's out there. So that's the process for collecting and deciding how funds are split amongst organizations. We're now going to move into how funds are used on campus and what's appropriate or inappropriate use of those funds. All expenditures in student life need to meet state law. They need to meet Minnesota's statutory definition of what a student activity is. And we talked about that earlier. The use of funds also needs to really advance the mission of not only the college, not only of student life generally, but of the club or organization that is seeking the funding, right? So your auto mechanic club is not going to seek funds to go see a screening of the new James Bond movie, right? That's not really advancing the mission of their auto mechanics club. I did see that film. It was pretty good, but I don't remember any cars or mechanics in it. And then also, just sort of a general rule is that all students must be eligible to meet the requirements of membership or an event. That doesn't mean that every activity, every event needs to be open to every student on campus. You can restrict participation to members of a given club, right? So if that same mechanics club, auto mechanic club, was going to a car show, right? They don't have to open up attendance or participation or travel to that car show to every student on campus. They can say it's open to members of the auto mechanic club. However, they do have to open membership to the club up to everyone on campus. So what the club can't do is say, okay, the auto mechanic club is only open to students that are enrolled in the auto mechanic program on campus. In reality, are students who aren't in the auto mechanic program going to join the auto mechanic club? Probably not. But you might have a student who wants to, who has an interest in auto mechanics and is maybe in, a welding program. So that's just something to keep in mind, that all students have to be eligible to at least meet the requirements for membership. And we do see issues around that every year. Some other rules of thumb, things that student life funds cannot be used for. It cannot fund curriculum. And so an example of that is a required component of a course or a program. So if a horticulture program, students in a horticulture program are traveling to a conference, and they open it up to every member of the horticulture club can attend. But those members who attend that are part of the horticulture program are getting a credit for attending, or they're able to test out of a final, or something along those lines. If it's any required component of a course or a program, you cannot use student life dollars to fund it. That's a curricular piece. That's part of the academic function of the college, and that needs to be funded by tuition and fee dollars, by the general operations budget, or they need to be doing some other fundraising around it. You can't use student life dollars for that. And again, that's because it's not open to everyone on campus. And it's not supplementing the curricular offerings. It actually is becoming part of the curricular offering. Another example of what you can't fund for curricular reasons is supplies or equipment. You can't use student life dollars to purchase scissors for cosmetology students or the cosmetology program, or knives for the culinary program. Those really, again, need to be funded through tuition and fee dollars on campus. You also cannot use student life dollars to fund any activities that are only open to an academic program. And again, that's an example of like the auto mechanic club going to a car show and seeing that only students who are part of the auto mechanic program can attend. There needs to be a distinction drawn between the program and the club. The club is a lot more inclusive. You can't use student life dollars to fund alcohol. That should be obvious, but there are occasions where maybe a club or organization or a student life department is hosting some kind of fundraiser, and there's alcohol as a part of that. So you cannot use student life dollars for that. You also can't use student life dollars to fund individual student scholarships or any kind of grants. Every couple of years, there's a campus that wants to have, they want to use student life dollars to create like an emergency grant program on campus. So if a student is going to drop out because they had an unexpected car payment that they can't pay, so they don't have transportation to school, or they are just short enough financial aid to pay for one textbook, or small things like that, they want to be able to provide grants to students to help them. And although that's a very laudable goal and a very noble cause, you can't use student life dollars for that purpose. You also can't use student life dollars to directly pay a student's medical bills or help a family on campus or anything like that. So no scholarships or individual grants. You also can't use funds to directly help a specific political party or a candidate. There is an exception, of course, for all the get out the vote work, the voter registration work we do. If it's nonpartisan civic engagement work, you can use the dollars for that. Additionally, a lot of our colleges have college Republicans group on campus or a college Democrats club on campus. And that's totally okay too, because you're not directly using student life dollars to help a political party. You're allowing students to organize around a viewpoint, and that is allowed. More cannots. I'm afraid that my list of no's is maybe longer than my list of yeses today, but that's really because if it's not on the list of no's, and you can make an argument that it fits within the statutory definition of student activity that we talked about earlier, then you really can do it. So there are a lot more yeses than no's, but for purposes of this webinar, I wanted to make sure that the no's were emphasized so that they were clear. So moving on, you can't use student life dollars to fund any facility projects on campus that are unrelated to student life. That includes maintenance, it includes renovation. So if they're looking to use student life dollars to recarpet the hallways in an academic building, or they want to use student life dollars to fund the renovation of a lab, or even common spaces that aren't going to be student gathering places, you can't use student life dollars for that. And I want to emphasize that because in the last couple of years, I've seen that to be a more prevalent issue. And I think that's because, really our colleges are facing shrinking revenue in terms of tuition and in terms of state dollars. So they're looking for ways to fund the things they need to do on campus. And it's not that administration knows that those requests are inappropriate, but often they don't understand the system policy or the law. So that is something to watch for. Make sure that any student life dollars that are going to renovate or maintain facilities are really for student life activity. Um, You cannot use student life dollars to fund any personal dues or membership fees. So if there's a cost to join a professional organization, um, you can't use student life dollars to fund those fees. However, you can use student life dollars to fund dues for an organization. So if your local college chapter of Phi Theta Kappa pays dues to the national arm of Phi Theta Kappa, that is allowable. You just can't pay individual fees. You cannot use student life dollars to purchase or lease any personal recreation equipment. So I apologize if you are looking to buy a jet ski. It's probably not going to happen. But more frequently, you'll see that issue come up. When the Senate wants to purchase their own vehicle, for example, for travel. You can't do that. You also can't use student life dollars for any personal items um, on campus or for any recreational travel expenses. So, as a Senate, when you travel to an MSCSA event, for example, you are allowed to use student life dollars to pay for mileage, to pay for renting, um, for use of a state vehicle if you needed to do that. But or for meals, you can use student life dollars for that. But again, let's use that auto mechanic club, and they want to go see the new James Bond movie. They go to a conference together, and they decide in the evening they all want to go see the film. That's obviously not part of why they're at the conference. It's a recreational expense, so you can't use student life dollars there. So what can you fund? You can use student life dollars to fund stipends for your senators. That would seem like it would conflict with the you can't provide funds, scholarships, or grants, but this is really a stipend for work that you're doing on campus. It's not just a scholarship. So you can use student life dollars for that, and many of our senates do. Um, you can use student life dollars to fund student life personnel. So your student life director, their salary can be paid out of student life dollars. However, if you have personnel who student life is just one of their hats, they're also a faculty member or they work in the registrar's office, um, only the portion of their salary that is spent, or only the portion of their salary attributable to their student life work can be funded through student life dollars. So that is allowable. Also allowable, the other travel expenses we talked about, if they fit the organizational mission, they're part of student activities, so mileage, meals, all those things. Organizational dues like the Phi Theta Kappa national chapter that we talked about. Bling, if you're going to buy Senate jackets or pants or, I don't know, sunglasses that are blinged out, you can definitely do that. That's not a personal item because it's promoting Senate. You're using student life dollars in order to market the Senate, and you're doing that through jackets or T-shirts or whatever it might be. So that is allowable. You can also use student life dollars for the nonpartisan civic engagement we talked about. So our rally day at the Capitol. You're allowed to use dollars to travel to come to that because it's nonpartisan. We're not promoting a candidate or a party. All the voter registration, pledge work, phone trees that you did on election day, that's all fine to use student life dollars for. So what about fundraising? This is the question that I get most commonly around student life. Students want to know how can they fundraise for Senate or other organizations. You're not allowed to use student life dollars to provide direct donations to causes. And that includes your local foundations. You cannot just write a check from Student Life to hurricane relief, to the Red Cross, to the Century College Foundation. That's not allowable. You also can't use Student Life dollars uh, through resources. Meaning, okay, I'm not going to write a check directly to them, but we're going to host a fundraiser on campus for the American Red Cross. And so we're going to buy cookies and make t-shirts and posters to promote the event. You can't use Student Life dollars to buy those cookies, to print those posters, because that is considered a donation to an external group. You can, however, do fundraising in a creative way, and in a way that does meet the letter of the law and of Minsky Policy. If you can find a way to raise money for a cause without using student life dollars, you could definitely do that. So you're not going to use school resources to make posters, but you're going to promote it in another way that's not using college resources. You can do that. So think about that. If you're going to have, members of a club are going to hold a bake sale, they can do that as long as they're using personal funds to bake those cookies, to bake the brownies. They can sell those on campus and fundraise for their own organization or for others. They can also fundraise as part of another event if it meets the definition of student life. So if you're having, let's say you had a candidate forum going on campus, and as part of the candidate forum, you had posters to promote it, you had cookies that were there, you were registering voters, and you also had a canned food drive or a monetary food drive going on for hurricane relief. You could do those types of things because you're using the student life dollars to promote the legitimate student life activity that's going on. And while you have everyone gathered together, if you want to collect money or canned goods, you can do that. Just make sure that you're not promoting the fundraising efforts as a part of the event through those college resources, those student life posters. And then just generally, if you have questions about a specific use of student life dollars, as we've learned this afternoon, there's a huge gray area where you go and you look at the statutory definition. You say, does this meet that definition? Does it complement the curricular offerings of the institution? Is it contributing to the moral or cultural or academic well-being of the students? And if it does, and it's not conflicting with restricted uses, then you should talk about that on campus and make an argument to your administration, to your advisor, that is a legitimate use. And again, MSDSA, we love to be a resource here in the office. So if you have a question about can I fund this or can't I fund this, talk to us about it, and we can tell you maybe how it could or how it does not fit within the definition, maybe how other campuses have approached it in the past, and we can try to be helpful. Just generally, though, when you're thinking about using student life dollars for a specific purpose, you want to ask yourself these questions. Does the use benefit the student body as a whole? Does it help to foster a college community? Does it support speakers, events, programs, programming on campus? And lastly, does it support student leadership development in a way that's going to support the student body? So think about those questions. Debate those, talk about those as a Senate or as a student life committee or as a club or organization, and you'll just be able to make sure that you're spending student life dollars in a way that's legal, in a way that's appropriate, in a way that's fair, and in a way that's ultimately going to demonstrate good stewardship to students. So that is the overview of the process, the use of student life funds. At this point, I just want to open up the call to anyone that might have a question about the use of student life funds. But before I get there, I do just want to provide my contact information. That's my email address. I'm Jessica Medeiros. I'm the Associate Director. and my email and my direct phone are there. And again, this whole webinar is going to be available on the web for your perusal later.